to our broadcast. As always, we will request that you show favor because this is a special and everybody must hear about this special edition of our program here focused on Liberia. A special guest comfortably seated in the hot seat, and he's here to face two questioning judges, Anthony C. and Dennis Jar. He's comfortable in his seat even though that seat is hot. My partner Dennis Jar will introduce him, but I will remind you to hit that share button so that others can be part of this conversation. And those who are following us also in cyberspace and on YouTube, welcome to our broadcast. Dennis Jar, I am ready and I'm all set.
Well, I'm also excited and ready. We want to say welcome to Focus on Liberia, wherever you may be. We are glad to have the senior advisor to Mr. Alexander Cummings, who's the political leader of the Alternative National Congress, and also the rotating political leader of the Collaborating Political Party. We are in the person of Mr. Wilfred Passawe. Mr. Passawe, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Mr. John. Thank you, Mr. C. It's a pleasure, as always, to visit with you and your listening guests.
We appreciate you coming. By the way, this is your first time on Focus on Liberia, so in a special way, we want to offer you the ceremonial cola. This is to say welcome to Focus on Liberia, and we are glad to have you.
It's a pleasure being here again. Thank you very much for the hospitality.
And we want to welcome all of you across the globe, whether in Liberia, Europe, or any part of the world. We say welcome to Focus on Liberia. On this platform, we try to educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. By way of introduction, Mr. Passawe is a senior advisor to Mr. Alexander Cummings, the political leader of the ANC, that's the Alternative National Congress, and the current rotating political leader of the Collaborating Political Party, CPP, of Liberia. Mr. Passawe is the founding chairman of ANC Global, a position he held until his resignation in July 2020 to take up the position of a senior advisor to the political leader, Mr. Cummings. He's also the founding chairman of ANC USA, which he held from September 2012 to July 2016. By way of professional-wise, Mr. Passawe is a management consultant. He has over 20 years of program and financial management consulting experience, providing consulting services to clients in both the public and private sector. He has received his MBA from George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. He's a certified project management professional, PMP, and member of the Project Management Institute, PMI. Mr. Passawe has served on a number of boards. He supports various philanthropic organizations and initiatives, both in the USA and Liberia. He's married and has 3 beautiful daughters. He and his wife, Dorothy, live in Woodbridge, Virginia. Again, ladies and gentlemen, there you have the advisor, the senior advisor, that is, to Mr. Alexander Cummings, Mr. Wilfred Passawe. Mr. C.
Yeah.
Back to you as we get this ball rolling.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis Jad and Mr. Passawe. We can't welcome you enough. You hold a position, and that role is crucial, providing all the wisdom to Alexander Benedict Cummings, who is the head of the CPP as we speak, and also the political leader of the ANC. So you are in a unique place because in any way, Liberia needs an alternative. And we can only find it in the opposition, and that is my belief. That is why your role is so crucial, because Cummings is a leader, even though others may not see him that way. But that is why we are here to ask you the questions, because leaders in the past, we did not ask them the necessary questions, and they came to power, and some of us are acting as though we are surprised, as to what they are doing today. So our job is to ask you, the leaders who have made yourself available, to provide the necessary leadership for tomorrow. So welcome. We will get started here quickly. Dennis has introduced you a very impressive resume. So that means that you have the wisdom to get this job done. So let's get started. And to get started here, we will take you to the history of ANC. Let's start with that. Give us a brief history of ANC, talking about the founding of the ANC. We understand you were part of the formation of the ANC.
Thank you, Mr. C. It's a pleasure again to be on the program. Yes, I must clarify, I was not a founding member of the party per se. The party was founded a couple of months prior to our coming on board. But yes, I was involved in the formative stages, getting the organization stood up, getting the participation of Liberians around the world. So we did start, we had an outreach from Monrovia. We had conversation with folks in the United States and the party. We paid a visit to Liberia and we engaged the party on the ground. And we decided then it was appropriate to have a supporting organization here in the United States created or established to support the party. So in October 2012, we founded ANC USA. After consultation with the party in Monrovia, we had paid a couple of visits. We agreed on the purpose and the direction. We were going to be a support organization for the party in Liberia. So we founded that, and then we ran it for about 3.5 years. And then 2017, there was a new amalgamation, a new sense of bringing in more people, preparing for the 2017 presidential election. And so that occurred. I did leave in July 2016, as you mentioned, and I became also an advisor to Mr. Cummings at the time. So again, that was the life of ANC USA. And then after the elections in 2017, the party leadership decided to do a post-mortem assessment to find out what happened, how we performed in those areas in which we could do better, and why we didn't do well in those areas we didn't do well. The outcome of the exercise identified a couple of things. Prior to the elections, there were multiple support organizations for ANC Liberia. Those organizations all had the same intention, well-defined, well-planned purpose to support the party. But because we were under different organizational structure, we were not properly aligned with the objective of the party, and we're not centrally managed. In politics, if you don't have the policy, the direction of the party centrally managed, you're definitely going to have difficulties because you have different subsidiaries, different groups. They may not always act in sync with the overall national objective. So one of the things that came out of that assessment was the need to have all the support organizations in the diaspora. There were Friends of Solitaire, there was ANC USA, and then the Cummings for Liberia, Friends of Cummings. All of those groups, it was agreed that had to be into one support organization, because in the absence of that, you have lack of alignment of objectives, lack of synchronization of support. You have groups, this group providing support, overlapping support in some areas, in some cases, and sometimes we had omissions because we were missing areas we assumed the other group was supporting. So again, all of that was agreed that had to be the direction going forward. So ANC Global was founded. ANC USA and the other groups, some of the other groups, members came on board to ANC Global. Some of the members from ANC USA decided that they would rather maintain the structure of ANC USA because they also wanted to engage in other non-for-profit pursuits. And that is not something that ANC Global was intending on doing. We were going to be a single focus organization to support the party and the objectives of the party. So that's the history of my involvement for ANC USA to ANC Global.
And what's the difference, ANC Global, ANC USA?
There's one support organization the party recognizes as the support organization in the diaspora, ANC Global. Like I laid out to you the rationale for that. Now, obviously, you cannot tell the other organization that they have no right to do what they want to do. They may have a proclivity for certain things. That's their right to do that. What the party did laid out was we needed to make sure we had a single organization through which these messages and support will be channeled. There are other reasons why the party would do that. I'm not sure how familiar you are, but with regulatory elements in the United States, under U.S. laws, there is a FARA compliance requirement, the Foreign Agents Registration Act, that requires any organization providing support, political support to any organization or person outside the United States to be registered with the Department of Justice National Security Division under the FARA unit. Well, to do that, you have to have specific compliance. You have to be in full compliance with specific regulatory requirements, including fundraising, reporting, strict control of fundraising, messaging, and making sure that there's transparency in your activities and periodic reporting to the Department of Justice. So all those things, recognizing the party, ANC USA, ANC Liberia, and the leadership of people with vast international exposure, both in their personal and their organizational exposure. We didn't want to go down any road that wasn't in complete compliance with regulations.
Understood. So how did Mr. Cummings become part of ANC, if you care to?
Yes, I will share with you that prior to the 2017 election, there was an outreach. There was a group, Friends of Cummings or Cummings for Liberia, who were also looking at supporting Mr. Cummings as a candidate in the 2017 presidential election. That was, I think, 2015. And so one of the leaders in that group reached out to me. At the time, I was chairman of ANC USA. And then I reached out to the leadership in Liberia to discuss that. So in that discussion, through a number of meetings and discussion, it was when we agreed to bring in the group that supporting Mr. Cummings. We had our own discussions internally, both here in the United States and in Liberia, and the leadership made that decision. It was not a decision made by any one person. It was a decision, and we agreed that it had to be consistent with the bylaws of the organization. So we went through a series of steps. We had pretty much consistent with the charter, and that was how we integrated with Cummings for Liberia.
And another thing is Mr. Kwame Clements. I understand he was part of the formation, possibly the first chairman. And there has been some rumors that Mr. Cummings did pay some money to become part of ANC. So, what is Mr. Clements' involvement then and now? And was there any payment done? Did money change in any way, shape, or form?
No. Well, let me clarify this, because I've heard different variations of this. In fact, it's funny because someone said that I received money from Mr. Cummings, so I sold out the party and I built my house. I have a house in Broadway, and my house was built many years, over 5 years, before I even got to meet Mr. Cummings. So that kind of, I hope that debunked it, but sometimes these things, they don't have legs, but they have tools to crawl. So no, Mr. Cummings, yes, Kwame was involved in the beginning. We were all part of in fact, he was the person who the party reached out to, the first person from the United States that they reached out to. And he called me right after he received that call. He called me and we had that conversation. It was in that discussion that we took the series of steps to formulate, to organize ANC USA and so forth. When Mr. Cummings came in, there was no secret, no surprise. There were, again, series of discussions with all the leaders. We had very good discussions. And after internal deliberations, we agreed that he was a great candidate. The party recognized that we didn't have a candidate at the time. And he came in with the kind of record that we needed. He brought the reputation, the record that the party needed. So we were also excited. We're very excited. There was a clear agreement of how we want to proceed, and we went about doing that. So he didn't just fly in, he didn't pay anyone money. If he paid anyone money, no. People have a tendency, obviously, I can recognize where some of this may be coming from. But let me share with you further. Before Mr. Cummings came on board, there were 3 persons. There were many other persons, there were many other people who provided financial support to ANC USA, which we used to support the party. The people in Liberia also raised funds, and the Chairman Lafayette Gu, a very astute politician, he was able to help us get a lot of things accomplished. But in the United States, I kept very copious notes. I was very clear about making sure we're in compliance with tax and the regulatory filings. There were 3 people, Dr. Elliott, Kwame Clement, and myself. The 3 of us contributed over 50% of the total amount raised by ANC USA to support the party. Why is that important? It's important because when people say people give you money, it's always important to understand, well, who did you give the money to? I spent my money. Kwame spent his money. Dr. Elliott spent many, or Jenkins Cooper and all the other, Eugene Bull and others spent their money. Many others spent their money. We were not looking for money. I don't have it. I'm assuming everybody else may be in different boat. But I don't have the money to walk away and say I can spend 100,000 or tens of thousands and not feel it. But I did not go in there for money. I spent my own money. So I'm making that clarification because when I hear people say, Mr. Cummings gave money, no, I don't know a single person in our circle who received any money from him.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. Our guest, Mr. Wilfred Passawe, he's the senior advisor to Mr. Alexander Cummings, who happens to be the political leader of both the ANC and the CPP. Before I bring in Mr. Asoni, tell us about the ANC. How is the ANC different from other political parties in terms of its philosophy, its organization, campaign strategies, and messaging?
And again, thank you for the question, Dennis. The thing about Liberian politics, unfortunately, we have found ourselves in a very unpalatable situation, the country. We have so many political parties. Sometimes it gets to be a joke. People wonder, but how is this different from this other party? The other thing is people change political party like they change in their clothes. And because there are plenty, and it's very easy to join one and to switch from one to the other. Now, unfortunately, we have an open democratic system, freedom of association. People have a right to do what they want to do. It would take the Liberian people, to straighten this up, unfortunately, because how do they do that? If they begin to consistently look for character, a leader, I will address the distinction between ANC and the other parties. I'm not casting any expression on anyone else. I don't speak to that. What I'm telling you is about what we in the ANC believe we represent. The political leader of the ANC has character, he has judgment, and he has temperament. Those are the attributes of a good leader. It's not somebody who comes every time there's something and he go braggadocio and go make noise and flail his hair around and want to beat somebody up. No, that's not being a leader. That's not being smart. that's not being a leader, and that does not demonstrate any sense of superiority. It only shows a lack of esteem and lack of understanding of the bedrock challenges the country faces. So we believe that there are other parties with good leaders. Now, what does that mean? Well, we believe that we represent a value system. We challenge our members to want to represent what's very important for our country. The things that we must look for in a leader. We want somebody with clean record, good character. And people say, well, when something happens, he doesn't go in the air and make a lot of noise. That's not leadership.
Mr. Passawe, we'll come to Mr. Cummings' character and experience and everything else. I'm talking specifically about the ANC. How will the philosophy, how is it different from other parties? Because Mr. Cummings is an individual.
Yeah, how do we run the organization? Transparency. What do we represent? We have a whole write-up of what we represent. We have a 30, 40-page document. We have our constitution. We believe in fairness and openness. We believe in leadership with the character, like I laid out, the judgment and temperament. We think Liberia deserves better. And you have to look at the people who are in the organization, the leadership team, and decide whether that's the direction you think the country needs to go. So I think you have to look at what we represent.
Right. On top of that, I want to see how ANC hopes to govern differently. And I want to relate it to the American experience, right? Where when it comes to the economy, when it comes to, other areas, how is the ANC different when it comes to its philosophy? This is how we intend to grow the economy. This is what we intend to do. And all these different things that will make the ANC to stand out based on its ideology, its philosophy. And
thank you, Dennis. The fundamental, and again, there may be some slight variation about this. The fundamental recognition is that there must be must be vision and the political will to execute the vision. Now, let me explain that. The ANC believes that the vision requires us to bring everybody together. It's a fallacy to think that because people in the opposition, they should stay there because the other people did it. That's a terrible mistake. The opposition represents a significant number of majority of people in Liberia in the opposition. Let's start with that. So if you bring the opposition in, you get two advantages. One, you have buy-in. When you get buy-in, they share responsibility for deliverables. Now, you can say that, well, I will keep this position, I will keep that. That's fine. It makes sense. Nobody expects you won the election to give the sensitive position to opposition. No. But you must have the vision. The vision requires you to bring them together. You're the winning party. So look, this country beginning, there are 5 key areas: agriculture, education, health and services, security, and infrastructure. Those areas, let's sit down. You bring your best people to this table here. Tell me how, give me a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plan and force them to deliver that vision. And then the political will, you must have the will to execute it. And not because people will come to you, Mr. President, or what you call, they're talking about doing this, they didn't want you to succeed. They will bring all of that in your ear. But if you want to succeed as a country, we believe, the ANC, that the opposition, everybody is responsible for being a part of the solution. That's the fundamental. We don't have all the answers. No one person can sit down and say, I will care water to Jenny or Sawila. I will care hand pump. No, ask the people there, but bring the opposition in. You sit down and develop a plan and you execute it. The country rich. We got 4.5 million, 5 million people. We have abundance of natural resources. Small country, lush vegetation. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Passawe. When Danny asked the question earlier about what are the things that really made the ANC to be different, you were asking for a philosophy, your messaging, and all that. When you started answering, I sensed some level of frustration because you start talking about all these many parties and people just changing parties as though they are like they're changing clothes. And so I want to ask the question, with that sense that you expressed, are you one of those who believe that the parties are too many and maybe there gotta be something to do about it?
I will answer the question this way because unfortunately, the answer that Liberian people have the answer to that question. Yes, I think fundamentally, the very fact that you have multiple parties, you don't have a concentration of ideas. So in other countries, you have the conservative, the liberal, or the moderate. So you pretty much, it's easy to define where they stand. In the case of Liberia, it's very hard. Many people follow the personality. Liberian politics is really personality based. It's really about okay, who the person running this party, and how can we go with them. Few of the leaders are open to an amalgamation of new ideas and new thoughts.
And you think the ANC is doing everything to change that? Because you just said it's like people are attached to individuals instead of institutions. So how are you making your institution attractive compared to making an individual attractive for people to get away from the idea of an individual as opposed to an institution?
We are, because that's how we attracted other good people. The ANC is we didn't when we started, we didn't have a political leader. We started ANC, we opened the party up for ideas. There was a concern that we didn't want to build it around individuals. So unfortunately, we found out very quickly that Liberian politics, you have to have, because when you go to anybody to talk to them, they say, well, who you're carrying? So if you're selling an idea, you have to also look at the people you're selling the idea to. Our people have a certain expectation. They expect to see people like them represented in the organization. If you go into Cape Mount to run a campaign, you can't go on your own campaign and just a theoretical disposition and say, okay, here what we think, here what we think. You have to bring people who they know and they trust to say, okay, I know this one man or this woman, they have done great for this community. So I see if they're part of you, then I think that we can start listening to you and start engaging you. But ultimately, though, it will be the Liberian people who will make that determination. And it will happen. It may not happen in our lifetime, because if you think about it, Sia, anything we're doing now, I don't care how low we go or how far we go, at some point, if we can't go any further. The young people, the population will demand performance. And when they demand performance, the reality is you don't have a choice. You have to deliver.
And Mr. Passawe, I like the way you put it, it has to be the Liberian people. And I'm just sitting here wondering, your new role here now, you are the advisor, not to the party, but to an individual. So how you as a Liberian trying to be part of the solution here?
Oh, it's very easy. Every organization, every political organization, you have political advisors. You need those people. The reason you need those people is just like the president said, you can't be all at the same time. You can't be involved in everything at the same time. You need people confident, people who have the wherewithal, the experience, the capability to go and run things or investigate things and bring back facts or bring back feedback. So you definitely, every organization, every political organization, you have political advisors. It doesn't mean you don't support the party or the leadership. I'm not just the political leader to the political. I'm not just the senior vice political leader per se. I am also a political leader to the leadership. I talk with the chairman regularly on a daily basis. I'm in touch with him, with the secretary general, the other leaders, the vice chair, and so forth. So these are people I'm communicating with on a daily basis, regularly. Again, the idea is if he needs something done, if I see something I want to bring to his attention, or I want him to focus on, or he needs me to do something, he has that flexibility, because I come with an enormous amount of experience and understanding of these matters, and he tends to want to make sure we have the right people addressing them. So that's pretty much my role.
Thank you. Before I bring Dennis in, I'm glad that you are the advisor. in politics, communicating effectively with a new message is key to the people you want to win over. I don't know the ANC winning message. I don't know it. I have not listened to it. So, what have been your advice to the party in terms of messaging? I know some of your political actors or players, and I see that they are sending out mixed messages.
Yeah, that's one of those things that it gets a little tricky to package. Let me put it that way. In an off year meaning the year that you don't have an election. Everybody has an idea, and there are many challenges all around us. So when you say what is the ANC message, we can go dust off our playbook, our platform, and everything, and try to push it out there, which we have done in the past, or we do every now and then. The problem is the reception. How many people today, with all the challenges and difficulties people facing in Liberia, will want to sit down and be talking about what aspiration there are, what things we can do in an off year. In an off year is very difficult to do. What we do is maintain our posture, what we represent. We continue our outreach, our field work, but almost always the response, the best input or engagement is addressing the issues of the day, where you stand and how you respond to those challenges that the ordinary Liberian face. So we're doing that. We're doing the outreach, reaching out with our platform and stuff, but that cannot be the overarching or the driver, because this is an off year, and even in the United States, as you know, in off years, most times the issues are really driven by what the people real life events, how the people's lives are impacted, and not what the manifesto or the party's position.
It's not. I'm not sure if this year is an off year as you're trying to describe it. We have elections on hand, so you should have that captivating message. That phrase. That people can identify to say yes, this message is coming from the ANC. I have not seen that.
Well, we are part of the CPP now. Don't forget, Anthony, we can formulate our own message in exclusivity. We have a overarching CPP view and ban on key issues. On the outreach program, there are teams that are going out. So there's an overarching CPP platform. Okay. But when you say this ANC, we're doing outreach, we're recruiting, but we're not promoting. Again, like I said, this is not a year where in Liberia right now, the CPP, they have different groups going out doing outreach, but not under the banner of the ANC. We're doing our own membership drives and so forth.
All right, and we'll come to the CPP in a minute, but you kept mentioning this name, political leader. I grew up in the 80s and watched parties. This is a new nomenclature in Liberian politics, political leader. And the way I look at it, to me, it seems that this is synonymous to permanent standard bearer.
Well, you wouldn't be wrong in making that inference. When I say that, I mean that there's a party chairman. There's a role for the party chairman or managing the organization and the direction of the organization. Usually, the political leader would be the person who was the last standard bearer, or a person who the party exclusively defines as the political leader. But usually, it's that person who was the last standard bearer until the next standard bearer is selected. The role there's a need for that role, because let me explain why. The political parties, usually the chairman or chairwoman of the political parties, are not the ones who run to be standard bearers. Check around, they normally don't. Right. So you need somebody at the top of the organization who will manage the operation and the organization. So that person can be the person who would then be serving the role as the
where is that president besides Liberia?
Besides Liberia?
Where's that precedent where we have political leaders in a party?
Oh, I don't know if I can take off about the top to say, usually the head of the organization, it may not be the nomenclature per se defined, it's its last standard bearer, the person who contested last, unless there's explicit language in their particular charter that says after X period of months, you no longer hold this position. Usually, again, there might be outliers, there might be other areas that have different charters or different conditions. But the way we saw it, and the way I still think it was a good idea, is the interest of the party is promoted by a political leader in that space where you have political leaders engaged in each other. If look, the fundamentals in Liberia may not be identical to many other countries. Liberia, we have a country with many people who are not in a position to engage politically because of their business interests, lack of interest.
Mr. Passawe, I want to respectfully disagree. What I see happening is there is a way that we just keep one person in power. Take, for instance, the late Mr. from Liberty Party. Okay.
Councillor Bromskin.
Councillor Bromskin was the political leader. It's like every year he's the standard bearer. We saw the same thing with now President Weah. After 2005, for me, that was the first time I heard the name political leader. And since then, we have had this political leader that even before election, we already have decided on the standard bearer. How do we, how can we now say we're going to do things differently if we perpetuate this idea of one person being standard bearer over and over with no challenge?
Dennis?
And Mr. Passawe, before you can come in, let me add to what Dennis said too.
Okay.
The thing is that this standard bearer position is seasonal, is for an election year. That is when the person is elected. Then that person becomes standard bearer for that election at hand. Once that election is over, that person ceases to be a standard bearer. But now, instead of them saying standard bearer, they are saying political leader, which gives the permanent status Dennis is talking about. And so my question to you is, who is the head of ANC?
Well, it's there in the charter. The political leader, then you have the party chairman. Everything is saying, in the abstract, what you say in the abstract, there may be an argument you can make. The thing, what I'm saying is, this is all laid out in the charter. This is not something, there were discussion, deliberation with the leadership, there were a convention, all of these things were discussed and agreed to. So, and there's not just one party, it's not just the ANC.
Yeah, that's
now, obviously, I could have a different view. You're right, you have a different view. But let me also throw in there another challenge that this is not unique to any one party. As I was trying to explain the challenge in
and
raising,
that's why we want you to change that, because you are the change party and you are the party that been saying we have to do things differently. Mr. Cummings is on record. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect to get a different result. This is an example of it.
Yeah, but you're assuming though, Anthony, you're assuming that because we have a political leader, we have a problem. I don't agree with that. Because the designation of political leader, no, it doesn't mean that it can be changed. That's a given. I grant that. But to infer that because we don't have it differently, then we have a problem, we're not doing things better. The designation, there will be a formal process to select our standard bearer. It's laid out in the charter. It's not by default. As soon as you become the political leader, automatically you become the standard bearer. No, the people will have to make that decision.
I don't mean to interrupt. Is that in your constitution?
Yes.
For political leader, is it there?
Yes.
So you made this thing legal that person should be the leader in every election, then we can decide that that person becomes the state ambassador.
It's there. The charter is clear. It's the definition, the responsibilities, and when you can make those changes. We have that all laid out in the charter. So that's what I'm saying. The decision of what the charter, the changes were made, I think about 2 years ago, a year and a half or 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something one person sat and wrote. There was a National Executive Committee. They had a meeting. They went to the convention, and they made the change, adopted it. So now we can want to change that. That's an open process. It's just like I always use the example. People always say, "Oh, but Liberian will do things different." Nobody does that. But let me give you an example.
Okay.
Here in the United States, in Kentucky, Senator Ron Paul wanted to run to be president, but the party charter requires that anybody who wants to be president, they can't be holding a senior position. They changed the charter for Ron Paul to run and retain his seat as senator. Listen, yo.
I'm paying attention.
The Republican Party in Kentucky, go Google it. They changed the charter that allow Senator Ron Paul to run and retain. Now, let's stop for a moment and ask, why would they do that? The logic in political parties, the logic in politics is to get the person who's the best representative to give you success. The whole purpose of political parties is to win election. All your ideas will be useless if you can't win election. So they recognized, the political party, the Republican Party recognized that he was the best candidate they had, and they did not want to lose him, take the risk of losing the seat.
And so they made why they couldn't just allow the people saying he is the best. The people would decide that he's the best instead of changing the law, thereby giving few individuals the opportunity to decide. That's what we see here, don't you think so?
And that's a good question, but maybe we can ask them to explain why they didn't do it that way. I'm just making a point, though.
I mean, I get your point. One, it is constitutional. I don't want to argue further about what the law is, but I mean, I just feel that there should be a better way around it. Let the people be given the opportunity, to decide who the best is. Let me progress here. We have 3 questions here we're going to throw at you. Number 1, the ANC did not win a seat in the 2017 general election. First question is why? Hold that one. Number 2, it is true that the ANC spent a couple of million in the 2017 campaign. We want to know that. And the final one, as of today, the ANC is yet to win a seat. When are you going to change that? Sorry for giving you that better ball. Go ahead. Okay.
Now, I'll eat a better ball to begin. No, no seat won. Why? No. Again, I don't want to sound like looking for excuses. The ideas you sell to people are only as good as the reception they give it. Now, when you're trying to run for a position, you go to people. Some people run 3 times, 4 times before they succeed. That's the reality of politics. Yeah, Joe Biden going 3 times the charm. Most likely, the issue of why you didn't win an election, there are the variety of reasons why you may have not lost. You see people try, they come close, the next time they try, they come closer, the third time they win. Because people who vote for different reasons. The people who go to cast their ballot, some of them don't know you. Some of them have a little understanding of your idea, or some of them have other people they prefer. A very variety of reasons. So that's why I told you in the beginning, we did a post-mortem to assess what we did, how we did, what are the issues we didn't do right, how we could improve. That's a normal program management approach to any endeavor. We did that. So why we didn't win any seat? It could be we know a few things. We came late. We didn't have a candidate that was well known. We had to change a few things. So we recognize those things. The next question is, we spend millions of dollars. I mean, and elections are not cheap in Liberia.
But is that true? Did you spend millions of dollars?
Well, we spent significant amount of money.
Significant. Give me a figure.
No, I'm not privy to that.
Can you say it's in millions?
I can tell you a significant amount. And let me tell you why it's significant amount. Just for sheer.
Why will you not say the figure if you have that information?
But I don't know the figures. That's why I can't say the figures.
Some say it's 10 millions.
I don't know the figures. I know what's significant amount.
Wrong with that news that ANC spent 10 million and did not win a single seat. That is bad press. Do you want that? Why can't you?
No. But I want to tell you, I don't think it's 10 million.
Okay, give me an estimate.
I can't respond to that because I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know the amount. What I can tell you was significant.
Is there something that you can find out and get back to us?
Yeah, I can ask and see if I can get any information about that. I can follow up.
Sure.
All right, folks in cyberspace.
And the third one, you said, "What are we doing?" What the third question was, "What are we doing to make sure we win?"
What are you doing? Will you win a seat this time? Because you are yet to win one.
I think we will. And then when I say I think we will, I think we the times have changed. We have a good set of candidates. We are looking to put our best. We're working on putting our best effort through the CPP. So there will be some challenges, as of course the opposition, the ruling party will put us on fierce.
You say you have a good set of candidates. Give me two names of the good set of candidates.
We have a good candidate. We have Kipmount. We have a very good, strong candidate. We have a strong candidate in Sino. We have candidates. All of them are good candidates, strong candidates. But we want to avoid. One of the things I try to avoid doing is try to pick and select, because it will be presumptuous on my part. But I can tell you we are comfortable with the candidates we have.
Is Mr. Ta Wongbe one of them?
He left the ANC. He's not running on the ANC candidate on CPP ticket.
You talk about, you made a statement. You said, bring your best people around the table, when you come to this thing. Who are the ANC best people? And I want to pinpoint some areas in Liberia and tell me who the best people are that will come around the table and formulate these ideas.
There are hundreds of people, thousands of people in.
Let's take one sector at a time.
Yeah.
And see, like the economy, because I want to see who are the ANC best people and what are they doing. Because what we want to see is not to react to what the current government is doing, but we want to see plans put forward. So who are your best when it comes to the economy?
I don't have a list of our experts. I would be lying if I say I can call names and say these are the top people we're presenting. What I can say is, in every field of pursuit, every area, we recognize we don't know everything. There are people, brilliant doctors and engineers and lawyers and economists all around the country, Liberians around the world. Those minds will have to be brought in to discuss the solution. I don't want to sit there and start taking out.
You have not started that process yet, Mr. Passawe?
Which process of bringing the money?
Of bringing the best on board.
No, I told you we had a platform. We had done a detailed analysis. We proposing a plan in 2017. No, 2023, we don't have that started yet.
Without giving me names, tell me sectors for which you have identified some individuals or that you see potential individuals in your rank and file that are more like shovel ready.
Everything is broken, Liberia. Everything is broken. I lay out these 5 key sectors, for example. And it's not, this mistake we always, not you now, but when I say we, us Liberians, we always fall in is that no one person has the answer. And the answer is not automatic. What it requires is the vision. And what that vision has to include the bringing together of all the minds from all over the opposition, from all parts of the country.
I would think you have the vision already, because if you don't have the vision, then you shouldn't be here. So the question I'm asking you is, if you have the vision, do you have the people to implement the vision?
I just told you, yes, we do have. I told you about our 2017 platform. We did a detailed analysis of the critical areas that the country has to focus on. We had not just what needed to be done, but how we could accomplish that. What's different this time is, like I told you, we don't have a team right now that's working on it. No, what we're part of this.
That is why I want you And I am thinking that you should be doing. You should have team for these major sectors. Look, the country is at a crossroad here. The ANC is claiming they can be the one. So we want you to be ready. We don't have time in our favor. So those of you who are in leadership, find the people. You should have the people now. And that is what I am saying. That would suggest to me that ANC is ready to roll.
You can't, no credible plan can be developed in the 3 years before election.
Why not?
It's not practical.
Okay.
It's not, you can create high level objectives. You can lay out the things that which we already have. Okay. What are the sectors and what needs to be done? You can have high level. You cannot create a credible, because next year, the environment will change, the variables will change, the year after that will change. So when you come to developing a credible plan, these are some of the things that I talk about, bringing people together. You can't bring people together if you're not the one running the government. So before you run, you have to tweak your plan. We will go back before the election with the CPP, we visit the plan and make sure we strengthen it. There are other people in the CPP who will bring ideas, we'll strengthen that. That then will form the basis for the part for the CPP using going forward. But after you win, now you won't wait till after you win before you start reaching out to people. But immediately after you win, you can't bake the cake and tell the man, say, my man, I'll bake the cake, can't eat it. No. Bring the man in the kitchen. Bring the woman in the kitchen. Let's work on the agenda. Let's work on it together and then lay out a plan and stick with it. That's how we think Liberia will develop.
Mr. Passawe, and that's exactly what we are saying, right? Because I read your plan. Most of what you have there, they don't have the meat. Take any sector, for example, let's say agriculture. You can tell that people who crafted that more or less did not have the background. And that's why I want to see if you have the kind of team, because what you are doing and what politicians in Liberia end up doing is you're only criticizing, right? Do you have a team that would take, for instance, the current budget and analyze it and say, this is what's wrong, this is what the priority is supposed to be? Can you, besides these platitudes, we're going to invest in agriculture, do you have specifics? Because it tells me that there are the people that are doing these things are just politicians. You don't have the people. And convince me if you have them. Give me some names.
Dennis, I said no. We had credible people put that plan together. We didn't put a plan by just winking it. We had serious group of experts. We had discussion. What I cannot do is say, okay, our plan from 2017, that is now our new plan and we'll use it going forward. It will have to be updated, revised, because the circumstances will change significantly. When you talk about giving specific how you develop agriculture, nobody can today tell you except the high level objective. We will prioritize liberalization. We put 50% of this into that. We focus on these 3 areas at the highest level. Because when you go to the mechanism, the implementation, you need to have very detailed specifics. You can't have that today. You cannot.
Let me give you an example. Healthcare, for instance, we see when the president got it, there are 3 major areas. If you look at healthcare, you say, well, what is it that the people need? Is it access? Do people have hospitals? Or is it the cost? We have the hospital, but people cannot afford. Or is it quality? When people go to hospital, are they coming back with more sickness? So if you know that has a political party, then you are able to derive your plan to say, well, we're going to target access, or our plan is going to target cost, or we're going to target quality of care. So you must be able to identify something so that you can know specifically where you're going to go. That's why we saw that when the president got in power, this president now, they started building hospitals. And if you see, really, that was not a need.
Let me address that, because it's interesting that you mentioned that. That's a good example of why I don't think you can sit here today and lay out a implementation plan about how you're going to achieve those objectives. What we found out, particularly in healthcare, what we found out in our research was a significant amount of the challenges in healthcare, health delivery was associated with the lack of pipe-borne water. Infant mortality, the diseases and so forth, there was reputable experts, even the World Health Organization report we used to determine whether or not what would be the best impact and most impactful way to address the challenges. And what they came up with, don't go build big hospital or well. First, identify strategic areas in the community for small clinics. The most important thing is to bring clean pipe-borne water to the people. If you bring pipe-borne water, because a significant number of the diseases in children and women particularly were pipe-borne water diseases. So that we found out immediately it will have immediate impact. Then you overlay that with your strategic long-term development plan. So we had that kind of conversation with doctors, with experts in that area. But I can't sit there today and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. Yes, sir.
Mr. Passawe, I have a disagreement. And to your point that the variables may change. And so we can't sit down here today and come up with a plan so that when we are lucky to be elected, that plan can be ready to go. You are saying you can't do that because the variable will change. I disagree with that very strongly. Here's the thing. You, as a party, criticizing the government, your overall criticism is that things are going downward. So you know the trend. You know where things are going. They are getting bad. Hospitals getting bad. Schools are getting bad. That is your argument. And you say you can't plan for education. You can't plan for healthcare because you are suggesting to me that it will get so bad. So if it will get so bad, then plan for so bad.
No, let me come in there, Mr. CA. Let me come with a serious clarification.
Okay.
When you develop a project plan, and my background is financial management, project management.
Okay.
You can, if you say, okay, we're going to invest X number of dollars in agriculture to achieve these 5 key things. If you can buttress that with reliable numbers, then it's an aspiration. It's an idea that you can't use it as an implementation plan. You're saying to me, we should give you very detailed specifics how we achieve these things. I can write it up right now and sketch up. We'll try to achieve 1,000 doctors in 5 years. I can list all those things. But the challenge,
Mr. Passawe, what this is what you are doing. Simply, you are telling me that you don't have a plan, or you can't come up with a plan now because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And politically, that is also telling everybody, no, we don't have a plan. You don't want to send out that message. That's what you're doing.
No party, no credible party today, I would challenge anybody today, no credible party can develop a plan for 2024.
You can do that. You can do that.
I
am a member of the Democratic Party. Hold on, let me come in. I'm a member of the Democratic Party. Last February, when we were having caucuses, the plans were being put together. All right? And the Democratic Party has a plan. So to sit here and say you can't do it, I find it mind-boggling.
You can't do it. Let me tell you why you cannot do it. Do you know the balance of payment position of Liberia in 4 years? Do you know the government revenue, a strength of revenue stream in 4 years? Do you know the government exposure of the wage bill in 4 years? Do you know what the constraints, financial constraints, and the revenue
question is when you're going to do that? After you are elected?
But no, you cannot sit here today and write up a plan, detailed implementation plan. It's not possible. I'm telling you.
Let's move on. Maybe
anybody tells you that, tell us that they got problem. You can't, for Liberia to say you sit here and write a detailed plan that will execute this in 4 years after we win. I will not even argue with that. It does not have a basis in reality.
And you talk of project management. If you can make your analysis, you can make your market analysis, you can even make projection for the next 20 years. But let's move from that. Let's go to the CPP. You are now a member of the CPP and you are advising Mr. Cummings on the CPP. So in the first place, why did the ANC join the CPP? Is the reason for joining the CPP still holding?
Yes, we joined the CPP because we recognize, like many Liberians, that the opposition in a fractured state will not be able to challenge the incumbent, the CDC government. That's almost a universal truth. Almost every politician recognizes that. We believe if we in our opposition have the same purpose, the desire to want to make a difference for Liberia, we can come together and put a credible candidate. And yes, we still believe that. That's a good reason to join, and we still believe that that purpose still stands.
Is the framework that brought the CPP together complete now?
Yes, it's complete.
Is it,
Now, but remember though, like everything else is complete, but there will be from time to time, there may be a need to, modify it, but it is complete.
Right. I mean, from the first copy that came out, it was withdrawn, and since then we have not seen it. Is it not circulated yet?
Oh, I think it has been circulated. It has been circulated. The final party.
Where can we find it? Because
I can follow up with the secretariat. Yes, I can follow up with the secretariat, but it did come up.
And Mr. Passawe, I think that's one of the problems, right? Because these things should be very handy. We shouldn't follow up to get such document, right?
But how would you get it though? Now that's a good point. But yeah, how do we know who needs it or who should get it? When you say that, Mr. Jai, it presupposes that there's a repository somewhere.
Yeah, your website. Your website.
No, the CPP should have a website. I agree with you. Yeah. The CPP. I will have to follow up. It should be there. It should be. I agree with you. It should be, but not to disperse to say everybody should have it. I think they should play a way that you should be able to have a copy. Yes.
All right. You are advising Mr. Cummings. Let's go through a few things, because starting with what your advice has been to Mr. Cummings on some key areas. Number one, there was a primary, we call that a primary fiasco in Nimba County, and the no primary in District 9. Well, what did you advise the chairman on that?
The fiasco in Nimba
primary. And then in District 9, there was no primary when Phoebe Henry was selected.
Well, I think you follow that, and what we recognize, I think we share that with the public. There was some fracas, to put it mildly. There was a mishap with the process, and there was an investigation ordered, and we didn't have enough time to rerun it, so a decision had to be made, and that decision was made, and the CPP put forward a decision. So that was, I mean, the decision about, there was an announcement put out, a statement put out by the secretary, by Mr. Cummings, or the secretary.
Right. There were two statements, each contradicting the other. It's like they put out the first statement within less than 24 hours, there was another statement saying completely the opposite.
Which one? Explain which one was contradictory.
In the first statement, it was said that, I'm not going to accept this, I'm not going to accept it, it's bad. And then the next day they say, okay, we're going to accept it because we want peace.
No, I think if you say, I'm trying to follow which statement you're referring to. If the statement was, this is an unacceptable behavior, or we in the CPP will not accept this, that's not a contradiction. It's when you put out a position.
It was just a repentance or change of mind.
Huh?
Was it just a change of mind? Or you repented?
No, it wasn't a change of mind, repentance. When you're dealing with these matters, the first thing you have to do an assessment. You understand what is the gravity of the situation. You put out a position where you stand on that matter. If after a day or 2 or 3 days, the situation you're presented with now has some stark constraints. It's no longer just, okay, you say you don't like it. There are many things you don't like and you accept because of the circumstances and the facts. You don't just accept it because you didn't think it through. But my point I'm making is whatever statement was made initially was a reflection of our views and our position on the circumstances. It didn't change. But when you have to make a decision as a leader down the road, 3-4 days, and you have constraints, you have time, or else you will not be able to meet the statutory requirements. So you have to make a call. The leaders make tough decisions all the time. It doesn't contradict what you said before.
Okay. Let's go to District 9, where there was no primary.
The same decision that was made, we followed a similar pattern in Nimba. In Nimba, we have a candidate because of the time constraint and the different challenges. The party leader came and got an agreement. The majority agreed to go in this direction. So that's why I want to be clear when you say you didn't have an agreement, you didn't have a primary. The party laid out the steps to select candidates.
Okay.
But here's the conundrum. The steps require time and resources, for example. And again, I won't be clear, I'm not a spokesperson for the CPP, but I'm just speaking to you about the facts as we all know have been published. The party, the members have to make a determination. The NEC schedule was tight. They had to make a call. What are they going to do? Do they choose not to field anybody and not meet the deadline? Or do they come together and agree on a candidate? So it comes down to the same thing I was talking about, the political expediency. What is the most important thing, and how do you achieve that with the most support from the membership to get the results you need? So that was one of those things, just like we did in Nimba.
Okay, let's move on to the CPP call-off protest. What's your advice to Mr. Cummings on that?
Oh, I thought it was straightforward. And again, as I said, there's a tendency, many people like to look at things from tough guy image. Oh, you said they got to do it. It's myopic thinking. When you make these determinations, these decisions, they have to be based on not just the moment, but you have to anticipate what the next 2-3 steps will be. So the decision to call a protest was valid. It was based on what had happened or was happening at the time. But I think he laid out in very clear detail that the engagement of ECOWAS, the engagement that the court had at the time, the court had put an injunction, was going to rule on that, and there were other players who had come into the discussion. You cannot disrespect or disregard them and say, no, we have set a date for our protest. We're going to go ahead anyway. That does not augur as a good statesmanship. So the logical thing would be give that process time to play out. And that's exactly what he did.
Mr. Passawe,
yes, sir.
Before the protests were cut off, I'm asking this question because I know you as a political unit, the CPP, sent out your communication people are listening to the vice chairman for mobilization on Spoon TV, saying that it was going to be a nationwide protest, all your supporters. Did you get back to your people to inform them reason why you were cutting off the protest before making that decision, or when you felt that those things you were advocating for were agreed upon, you needed to just announce and not inform them? Walk me through. What were you advised as an advisor in the decision-making process regarding that?
Oh, I'm not on the ground, but I'm almost certain that there was some internal discussion about the direction that the CPP was going to go. It wasn't a decision just by the ANC, and it wasn't a decision, in my view. I don't think it was just a decision taken without consultation of the members' party, the constituent parties. So who knew what, when, or how soon? That might be a debatable point, or how widespread was the decision shared before it became public. I can't speak to that. What I do know, that decision was not made in isolation. It was not a decision made by one party or one person. It was a consultative discussion, and the decision arrived at. So obviously
Instead of telling me about consultation, I'm telling you about the people, your supporters, your members, all across Liberia were informed that they needed to come out on that fateful October 28th to protest. So I would think they were in gear to do so. Whether or not you got back to them to inform them as you did publicly for them to come out, the party or CPP did not do that. And I'm saying that emphatically. They did not do that.
Mr. C, I cannot argue with your assertion. You may be stating that factually and maybe based on people you have spoken to. What I can say definitively is the decision was not made in isolation by 1 or 2%. It was a leadership decision. Now, obviously, there will be people in the party structure who were not privy to that, and you would agree. I would agree that maybe there'll be the widespread dissemination of the decision should have. But that's a separate question in my view. I don't think it pretends that decisions are made, people are kept in isolation. I think this pressure is important. People need to know. The right people need to know quickly, and the membership need to be aware of it. I can't speak to how they disseminated that, who did it, when. I can only tell you the decision was not made by a single person or a single leader within the organization.
Thank you. Mr. Passawe, we at Focus on Liberia have been calling on Liberian, especially candidates, for debates. Let's have debates, because most of the time, as we all alluded to earlier, people are attracted to individuals, so we don't even debate the issues. Mr. Cummings had an opportunity to debate the issue with Mr. McGill, and he declined. Did you advise him to do so?
I mean, what would be the point, though? Why would he be debating Nathaniel McGill?
Why not?
Why?
Why not?
But why? You haven't told me why.
Why not? When I say you being part of Cummings made a decision that you can't debate him, so you have a reason. Tell us the reason why you won't debate him.
But I don't know if the argument, and I'm not trying to be obstinate here, but Mr. Cummings is the political leader for the ANC, also the current rotating chair political leader of the CPP. Who do you want him to debate with? And why?
Is Cummings a president?
Anybody?
No, he didn't say I'm a debate president. He didn't say that. You say can't debate with somebody. What will be the debate? What's the point of the debate?
So who does Cummings want to really debate in Liberia? Who?
No, but you say if the other opposition parties have a position that contradictory, they want to have a forum and they have a debate about the position of the party per se, that's a reasonable expectation. But if you say somebody from this party, regardless of the position he holds, he's a senior member, yeah, that's fair. But you can't debate with him because, come on, guys.
And here's the thing, Mr. Passawe, I know that is debatable, and I understand it is Mr. Cummings' right to decide who he wants to debate. But here's the thing. The ANC, the whole opposition bloc, believe that the government, for lack of a better word, is a mess. And the government is incompetent. They don't have the best minds in there. Why you can't go to a debate and beat the man in the debate to show that I told you people they don't have anything? Why you can't go to prove that?
No, every day there's a debate in Liberia. Every day. There's a debate on the street.
And it was Mr. Cummings' time to debate Liberia.
No. I come here with Mr. Sia. Let me learn.
Go ahead.
Every day in Liberia, there's a debate. The average Liberian person on the street has an answer for why the buses, the fare going up, why they don't have money to pay the school fee, why the rice price go up. There's a debate. You don't need to have.
So that was an easy debate for Mr. Cummings to just go and tell the man, you can't even pay your people, and he won't accept that challenge.
No, because where does it stop? Let me ask you. Let me flip the question around. What if the regional director from finance say he wants to debate Mr. Cummings?
Then let Cummings go and debate him.
So anybody who wants to debate him or just go and debate
Let him
them?
go and debate the person. What is wrong with that?
I think we have a different view of
I know
that's
we
a different
certainly do,
discussion.
Mr. Passawe. We
And Mr.
certainly do.
Mr.
And here
Passawe,
is the thing. Look,
Uh-huh.
Mr. Cummings has some name recognition, but he does not have the knee attraction. And I'm the one saying it. And the way you get the knee attraction, you were talking earlier about, this strongman mentality, politics in Liberia. It is true. I agree with you. That's how Liberian politics is. I'm not saying Cummings School should play that, but to go to a debate is an intellectual exercise to show that you can stand with anybody to defend the country you want to represent. And that's why it is. And I think if Cummings can do that, that knee attraction he does not have, he will get it. I mean, it's just my view, and I'm sure you
And
have
I respect your view, Mr. C, but I'll be honest with you.
Mhm.
Our input, our feedback we got was completely different. It was to the contrary.
Okay.
yeah. So how do you want Mr. Cummings to approach this whole debate? Who do you want Mr. Cummings to debate?
We using debate like some fulcrum.
I'm talking about I'm talking about a forum where we exchange debate ideas, we debate the issues.
But
Have an idea why Mr. Cummings should go and debate with somebody. Come on this platform and get someone else and debate. Or anyway.
Okay. Mr. Ja, again, maybe it's just my thought process is a little fuzzy about this whole debate. The way I see it, I could be wrong, and I grant that. We seem to be thinking or inferring that there's a need for a debate because that is a place that we can judge him, and it doesn't matter where the forum. We just need to have a debate.
No, a place where we can debate the issues, because most of the time there are no debates. Okay, people run for position without any debate, so we don't hear what the issues are. All we hear is this other person is better than this person. This person has Liberia a heart. This other person has Liberia a foot. This other person has Liberia a head. So,
and do you
don't hear anything about the issue?
How much of a good example that would have said? We are focused on Liberia. Have started a campaign to end the no debate culture in Liberia. If Mr. Cummings have gone to that challenge to debate Miguel, it would have set an example to everyone in Liberia that, myself too, I want to debate this person. Then we will start talking in a very constructive manner. Because there are no debates, you know what's happening now? Everybody yelling on top of their head on their platform. That's why it's going on, because there is no debate. When we start having debate, when we challenge each other, then we will be able to showcase the country. But it is not happening. I want to come in to set that example. Hey, this is right.
I think, Mr. C and Mr. Ja, I don't disagree in ordinarily I don't disagree with the precept, with the concept, with the thinking about the value of a debate. But I suppose where we differ is that I think that would not be the way we would approach it.
All right, let's go on some issues. Mr. Cummings has been criticized fiercely in the past on a number of things, and at that time, I don't think you were the advisor. So, but let me walk through some of these issues and see whether there's anything you need to clean up or anything that you have advised differently.
Okay.
During the campaign, Mr. Cummings was carrying a hammock and people criticized him heavily. What do you make of that?
My man, the people they were looking for a straw. Where I grew up in bombing, when we all know that when people come, the women put down the lapa for people to walk. People take people, lift people, or walk around, and when they promote you, they're happy, they're glad. There is nothing. The inference they wanted to give it a negative twist. It just blew it. That is a non-issue. The people say it's a nothing burger. There's nothing in there.
Putting the lappers down, carrying you shoulder high. These are all ways that people do things. But in hammock, it has its own history.
We can point to any number of things, and I'm making this we taught to disagree that the hammock connotes the ugly past when our digital people were carried all by. I mean, we're carrying people of
chiefs and kings.
Yes, that is not how the people who were doing it saw it. They were volunteering to raise him up. They were doing it out of the desire to show that somebody would have wanted to be the leader. It could be, you could call it that, and I wouldn't challenge or argue the way people say, but I know many of the people who raised that, they were not doing it because they really believe in what
we have a couple. We have a couple more here. Mr. Cummings are also being criticized for palling around with Mr. Yeke Koluba, who uses a lot of profanity, especially on the president, to address issues. And he has a way of politicking that look like he's completely disrespectful to the president and other authorities. And so people are saying, show me your friend, I'll see who you are. So that has been one of the criticisms against Mr. Cummings.
Look, I will be very upfront with you, and I'll say this honestly and respectfully. Personally, I have never, ever insulted anyone within government. The president, I know him personally. I would never do that. That's not in my nature. That's not who I am. Now, we get down this slippery slope and say, I wouldn't encourage anybody to do that. Let me be upfront. That's not my character. It's not in my nature.
Well, now, why is Mr. Cummings not condemning?
No. There's a second part to this point I'm making.
Okay.
It's almost saying that now we can define speech, because as soon as you go down that slope, then you start saying, okay, you can say this. You can. I would not encourage anybody to say it. I would not say it, but I have no right to tell somebody what to say or not say. That's not my prerogative. Right. It may sound a little fuzzy, but that's the nature of democracy. That's the nature of democracy. I would not do it. That's not who I am. But I can't say I will not speak to Dennis because Dennis insulted somebody. There's something that I will not do. I will just tell my man, and I don't have anything to do with that. You don't call my name near it. But I can't say I will not be your friend because you engage in the political sphere.
Mr. Passawe, the criticism is that Mr. Cummings even defended Yeke Koluba. And this is what he said. He said, Yeke Koluba loved Liberia. And even though he disagreed with his style of communicating, the man, loved Liberia. So because he loves Liberia, it's like he's saying he can insult anybody and I'll be fine with that in as much as he loves Liberia.
Look,
this is the man who's saying that we can't be doing the same thing over and over. I will not go with Yeke Koluba anywhere because of the things that he said and the way he said that. George Weah is a terrible leader. I answer this here saying that. But because I believe that to say, oh, this guy's going to be my friend because he insults, no, I can't do that.
Mr. C, I tell you honestly, Mr. Cummings has said this himself multiple times. That's not his personality. That's not his character. When you are in a political organization, you cannot prescribe how people speak. It's fundamentally not in cogent with the law of Liberia. Freedom of speech, you have to hold him responsible for what he says. And that's a separate part of this thing, because people say, oh, you heard him insulting, why are you associating with him? I just laid out to you, we are a political party. People come with different views and different ideologies, and they come to be a part of this organization. If you start taking off, oh, you insulted somebody, so you would not be part of the organization. Now, I don't agree with the way people approach politics in many respects. I would not do it. That's not who I am. But I can't say that should be a prescription for everybody to follow. I don't think it would be appropriate.
All right. One of the criticisms, Mr. Cummings came on criticism the other time for a response that he did give to this ongoing accusation of him being the other way, not being man enough, talking about sexual orientation. It is something that that is out there that people trying to stick on Cummings. And we have a clip yet where somebody confessed that he the one concocted that lie and said Mr. Cummings is other than a real man. So when Cummings was asked this question on Sekou Kaneng show, and I watched that show from start to end, he said those who are saying these things, if that's what they believe, then let them send their girlfriends or their wives so I can show them. That was his answer. I know you were not advisor at the time, but if you were, would you advise him to say that?
It come back to almost like the last question. When people say things, that put this in perspective. People have been, you heard a clip of the man admitting that he lied and he made up this story. Mm-hmm. You got your family, you've been married for 35 plus years, successful, you're a comfortable family. Then somebody start telling rubbish, and people start asking everywhere you go, explain these things. So at some point you will say, look, they're nonsense here. I don't want to give you any more credence. And you can respect that. Now, maybe I would have responded, but I can't question why I responded, because I know people reaching out to us in the beginning, years ago, they start asking this question, is it true? Is it true? It's not true. So,
then just keep saying it is not true. Other than to say, send your girlfriend or send your wife, that was out of line.
I can't pass judgment on it, and I would have done, maybe I would do it differently, but
Mr. Passawe, this is your second or third time saying, well, I wouldn't say it that way or I wouldn't do it, but I can't tell anybody how to do it. You are advisor to the man. And in politics, messaging is matters, what you say. That's why in American politics, you will hear the word misspoke. Oh, he misspoke. Will you say he misspoke, or are you just going to say, well, I wouldn't say it that way, but I can tell you what to say?
No, I think you have to also appreciate that there will be a lot of consultation I have with Mr. Cummings. Right. And those are private conversations. I would not come and just tell you our conversation. But I would not say it. Maybe I would say it differently. But I can understand, again, I'm not saying he will continue to say that that's the person he is. I just lay out to you why I would see why somebody would do that. I'll say that.
We also see that there are some key people involved with Mr. Cummings who will leave Mr. Cummings for one reason or the other, and some of them have turned to fierce critics of Mr. Cummings. And I'm saying this because even though we expect friendship not to last forever sometimes, or this political arrangement, but sometimes it speaks to how you vet people and how you bring people in your circles. So let me give you a few examples. Mr. Leo Mumba, right here in Atlanta, Georgia, was part of Mr. Cummings' team from the beginning. Probably he was involved in the outreach to join the ANC. Another name that comes to mind is Mr. Jeremiah Solonte, who left the ANC and has some tough words. Right here in the US, we see Mr. Remy Gray. We see the man who ran on the Cummings ticket or ANC ticket, Mr. Takunje. All these people are away from Mr. Cummings. And what does that say?
I don't know. If you have to look at each of the circumstances, each of the situations on this own merit. I don't know the issue of Leo Mova. I know I spoke with him when we started the conversation, but he wasn't involved much longer after that. I don't know the story behind Takum J. And so the issue of why somebody leave a political party, it's very easy to say we can point to this or that. There are many different reasons. And it could well be that they had different views or different philosophy about the direction of the party. That's not unreasonable. Mr. Cummings did not singularly make up the party. He could not singularly be the one deciding who stays or who leaves. Now, understandably, some people may have aspiration that may differ from the leadership, or they may have some thoughts and like to see people manifested, and those who are not being done. But you have to look at each of those circumstances on their own, kind of sense get a better sense of what happened in each case.
All right.
Go ahead, Dennis.
If you just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We're going to be opening our calls, our phone lines to get some callers. Join the conversation. If you are watching, the number is posted there. Please call in and ask Mr. Passawe some questions, or you can ask us questions too, or you give your comments. So let's move on quickly to another topic. And we're going to come to trending issues, but I want to ask you one question about because you are opposition and you are criticizing the government, right? So before we get to the trending issues, I want to tell you that the government has completed some major projects. and such. I'm going to name them for you. I'm asking this because sometimes the opposition paint a picture that nothing is happening in the country. We have the 14 military hospital, the 14 military city, the Lone Star, airline just being dedicated. We have the street lights, the Doe Community Road, the housing projects in Peloton, in Southtown. These are our progress. You will agree.
There's no argument. Anybody who argues when there's a new development blandly or just blanket disregard for that progress will not be doing justice to facts. The facts are there. New hospital means a new facility for people to benefit from. New roads, people will have better roads to drive from. New airlines, as successful as it may be somewhere people will have an opportunity to reduce costs. New estates, 14 military cities, 14 cities, or 14 whatever. Those are achievements you have to accept. They are good things. I think what gets confused sometimes is that I don't think anybody I know argues against those things per se. I think the larger argument has to be, or has always been, what is the direction of the government and how it addresses the critical issues? You can recognize and appreciate what the government is doing in those areas that it made progress. You can also challenge or raise concerns for the failure in those other areas that they have not addressed. Now, prioritization. What is the government priority and why is it? That's a discretion of government. But the way to answer that is to answer what's the priority that have the greatest impact, positive impact for the people. That's the way any government will have to be graded or measured. You can't say because I didn't do X, Y, Z, so I did. But no, anytime you develop anything new, anything good for the benefit of people, it's a good thing. But you have to put it in the context. What's the maximum benefit to the people? And that's how I think we come at this.
How do you grade the government when it comes to that?
Well, those are achievements. Those are things those are good things. But in the total scheme of things, don't take my word. As the average Liberian, looking at 3 years ago and now, are they better off? What's the quality of life? Is it going up? Is it down? That's the way you get the best answer, not from what my perceptions are. But I see net, the good things. Put a new hospital, new roads, new asset. Those are positive things.
That's my last question on trending issue. I want to list some issues. What people are saying is that they are not hearing alternative, or they are not hearing from the CPP or Mr. Cummings on really what needs to be done, or merely identifying with the people. There have been deaths in Monrovia with the auditors, of course. Now we have missing boys linked to St. Moses. There's a leaked audio report and its ramifications. There's a $4 billion money shortage in Liberia. There have been strikes from the health workers to legislature, people, Temple of Justice, and you name it. And it looked like ANC and CPP, they're kind of quiet, or we don't really see what they are saying, how much they are rallying, or kind of providing alternatives to all these issues.
I think we have been vocal. Now, maybe not as vocal as people think we should be. I think we have put out positions on these issues and demanded that the government takes action, appropriate action for these circumstances. But there are too many things going wrong in Liberia. Too many things going wrong. And obviously, these are very alarming situations. I don't believe, and I could be wrong, I don't believe any government comes to power and wants to have bad press. I don't think any government does that. But the government action or inaction drives bad press or forces the people to take the action they take by raising the concerns and noise. There are a lot of things you can do to ease these concerns. Transparency, the most powerful tool any government has. We speak up. We put out our views, our position. We challenge the government and the population to stay focused on these things. But it would take the people, the concerted effort of the people. Unfortunately, This is not something that most government kind of find it easy to respond to. A good government should be able to address these things with transparency quickly before they get to the point where they get become a ostracized, outside
Mr. Passawe, sorry to interrupt, but sometimes people want to see more than position statement. Like, for instance, the family of the missing boys, as we call them now, they're calling for help. What is the ANC or CPP doing to help, to give them the help that they're looking for?
I will have to, I can't give you verbatim what specific statement or action position has been taken on each issue, but I'm very involved, and I know that on all the major issues of the day, the party, the CPP, comes out and takes position. Now, there has been a lot of discussion where you said that some people think the statements are not good enough. People think we should have people on the radio, people should be, more out there, outspoken. That I kind of agree with that to an extent, because there's a tendency to say that our people don't read, and so when you put things out there, limited number of people will get to it. So it's always important to have people on the radio, people out there, leaders out there. That's true. How much of that should be done, or when that should be done, that's one of those things the communications folks always struggle with, because you have to balance that with the other competing issues of the day. Is it this issue of the murdering of the internal auditor? Is the issue of the stolen money? Is the issue of the journalists who got killed recently? Or you put all of them into one category and challenge the government to address them?
All right, folks in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia. We are in conversation with Mr. Wilfred Passawe. He is the advisor to Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings, head of the ANC and the CPP. It is about time that you place your calls so that we can take your calls. If you have questions for Mr. Passawe, or if you disagree with any of the answers that he gave, then you will have the opportunity to give your take. So get your calls coming in. The phone line is also on the screen. It also been pinned at the bottom. Call and you will be given that opportunity. Mr. Passawe, I have a question for you. Do you believe that our current government is corrupt? If yes, what made you to say that?
The things speak for itself. And let me tell you what I mean. When there were multiple reports during the Ellen government time, and those reports never saw the light of day. And whenever there are reports about corruption, about malpractice and so forth, and nothing happens, like in this government, you cannot explain yourself out, because money got missing. People are alleged to be involved in misallocation, misappropriation of funds. All these things got investigated, but nothing happens. So you can't. I don't need to say that. I think the inaction speaks louder than anybody saying anything. If the government wants to set the record straight, it can do that today without a doubt. It can go in and make sure those reports get published and make sure the people are held accountable, and then take them through the process. The other challenge is, of course, you got that somebody was telling me there are no Liberian bishops in jail. All of them, they accuse them of not just Jawia, all of them, they get accused of embezzlement. Where the money going? The money going somewhere to build a houses, send their family abroad, but then you don't have anybody being held accountable. So I think the cases are self-evident. You guys in the news, in print and visual media, you show it every day. The government has a responsibility to be transparent. If the government is not doing that, I'm not sure you can argue for it otherwise.
Mr.
Yeah, I wanted to ask this question, and we can go to the comments. The thing is that we heard Ellen when she came. She said, corruption was vampire. Before she described her enemy number one, when she could not sustain the fight against it, she described her vampire. And then came Weah, and Weah said, well, even though it's a culture or a way of life in Liberia, We will fight it wherever we see it. And now you turn around and say, oh, we are all related, and so on and so forth. So that is to say that we are government now. When they were in opposition waiting, said they were going to prosecute people who were involved in the corruption. We are yet to see that. Will the ANC or the CPP that you happen to be part of hold people accountable for maybe out of corruption that they're being accused of?
Yes, we had this conversation many times with Mr. Cummings. Mr. Cummings ran one of the largest global companies in the world. He had a clean record. He came up stellar. He ran a multi-billion-dollar company. Now, we always say that the best predictor of future performance and future behavior is past performance and past behavior. He has a globally recognized stellar record, and he's made it clear to all.
Passawe, that is different. And I like you brought that quote. And according to Cummings, the best predictor of future performance is past performance. So let's look at that. At some point, we have Munafaha, who got into this thing about Mandingo people. At some point, she accused the people of Grand Bassa of selling their land for smoked fish. But the Mandingo comment she made at the time got into trouble. ANC issued a letter, will not even mention her name. She was not even suspended for that. So can we look at that past and say that ANC, when it comes to power, will not be able to persecute anybody in your ranks? In fact, you could not even suspend somebody for a terrible statement that they make.
You know, it comes back to one of those questions we had just discussed. I don't know of any position Ms. Faha holds in the ANC. She's been one of the supporters, yes, but I'm not aware of any position that she holds.
Does she need to have a position in the
No, I'm coming now. You say she will not.
She can be suspended for a reckless statement that she made?
You say suspend. That's my point I'm making. The party disassociates itself from her comment, and we don't really represent ANC. The problem is there's a supposition that all of a sudden we can say, okay, this person is no longer involved with the party and they should go away. And then automatically that addresses the problem. We don't agree with that statement. I mean, we made it clear. That's not something we represent, that represent ANC, and that's not called for. Is
but you
wrong.
not even mention her name in that statement.
I don't remember the detail of the statement, what it came out to say, but I'm telling you,
we remember her name was not mentioned, and there was no reprimand for the Bassa comments, only the Mandingo comments. But let's move on. Let me bring in our participants because they've been commenting. We want to read some of the comments. Right. The first one is from Sam Wallow. Say they had a solid message talking about the ANC. The problem is the message was compromised when they joined a coalition of individuals who are in complete conflict with their message. Thomas Awaji said, nobody has a message in Liberia. We need a leader to inspire the masses. Thomas Lewini said, Mr. Passawe is fresh, that government money or Jesus making you, I think he's joking here. Yankwe Bowman said, Mr. Passawe is always eloquent in his utterances, my respect. Mr. Bowman is a strong member of the ANC, no surprise there. Until Liberia in the diaspora unite regardless of party and tribe, rebuilding that country is impossible. That's Thomas Awaji. Mozola Gizi say, I'm really enjoying the quizzing of the guests tonight. Sam Wallow also said, please ask him why Mr. Cummings continues to refuse to accept the petition from the people of Maryland County to serve in the Senate, while he prepares to compete in the CPP primaries for standard bearer and thus president. That will at least provide the opportunity for Liberians to test his mentor in Liberian politics, which is a concern here. In 2016, 2017, they said they would not do specific plans because they didn't know what they would meet if they won. That is an unreasonable position, and they are still saying this is unbelievable. More questions here. Yankwe Boma also said, plan is different from implication, guys. You ask for plan, then you ask for how it will be implemented in the future. We didn't say that, Mr. Boma. Wilton Ketter, please do not compare the American political institution and programs with that of Liberia. I agree with Mr. Passawe. Sir Richard Clinton said the CPP is not ready. Vic Garley, oh wow, all what I'm hearing from the guest tonight is he has a plan, but those plans can't be implemented until he wins the election. Sam say, please ask him if the departure of Wangbe is a problem for the future of the party. William Ketter, why some members of CPP are questioning the ANC candidate that's in district number 9. Alex Jones says, you should have a party manifesto plan for people to decide if you have what it takes to join your party, or should people just join on personality like Liberians have always done? That got us where we are today. ANC CPP documents should be on ANC website. Question, did Mr. Cummings pay any money to become the political leader of the ANC? I think you answered that question. Ambassador Duduboy Mobile Taylor said, why will you compare Cummings to McGill? It is total disrespect. Mozilla Gisi has something long here. Alice Jones said, debate so the citizen can understand ANC CPP position and solutions to the problem. Sam Wallow, please ask him why the party is supporting a November 16 protest, which seeks to bring thousands of poor Liberians into the street. There's also Bowman say, please bring George Weah for debate. Dennis, I wish I have that power. Mr. Cummings, there's a question here that you should bring. The
Mr.
questions
Passawe,
are
you
long.
said Mr. Cummings, Mr. Passawe.
Yeah, they say you should bring Mr. Cummings. Mr. Passawe, we have been asking Mr. Cummings to come on FOL for over a year now. He has not done so. So there's a question here, say, why can you not bring Mr. Cummings on FOL? So let me let you respond to some of our comments.
I think one of the things that I like and I encourage about this discussion is that they are civil. They give us the opportunity to exchange ideas and viewpoints. And understandably, we may have different disposition on many issues. But I think like everything else in life, they're not simplistic issues. It's very easy to say, well, you should do this or that should have been done. In isolation of everything else, that may be the case. Now, the concern about the ANC, what has the ANC done, the manifesto, I think I laid out to you all. We do have a platform, very well developed. What we cannot do, and I don't want to regurgitate this, I think we discussed it. It wouldn't make sense, in my experience, in my background, wouldn't make sense to talk about implementation now, because you have to have specifics, the 3 critical elements, you know, the resources, the time, and then you address those constraints, the cost. So if you can't do that, then all you have will be an aspiration or projection of what you would like to see. It cannot be considered a concrete plan. I think the Liberian people are demanding, and will continue to demand that the party come with solutions. They should. We will be the ones to suggest what they should be, but the ultimate determination will be by the Liberian people. And that's the right way to do. Now, how do they enforce that? Will they make sure they can, for example, Mr. Cummings will come on your platform to take the questions? Those are things that need to happen. It's not just Mr. Cummings, but usually the people will drive this will be the Liberian people. And unfortunately, in our community, there's a tendency of people not to want to do certain things because it's not chic or it's not sexy, if you will. I think the call for debate is a good one, but I think it has to be well thought through and structured so that people get the expected outcome. I don't know if there's anything that we could do differently. I'm sure there are many things we could do differently about some of the communications. But again, we take these things in and go back to the leadership and say, okay, this is what I'm hearing. Can we strengthen that area? And those are things that you can always find a way to improve. But the decisions are not made in isolation. Now, how fast do they get disseminated? That's a separate question. I can't say for sure that it gets through the regular files speedily enough. Maybe that's something that we need to look at improving.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Passawe. I think we have kept you for so long, and we will allow you to leave, and maybe in the future get back to you, as we hope
Absolutely.
that you will continue to provide the best pieces of advice to Mr. Cummings as he leads the two protocol institutions that he is currently leader of. And so before we leave you, you are at liberty now to give your closing statement to
Okay.
us and also to our followers.
Thank you very much, Dennis and Anthony. I think it's a pleasure being here, visiting with you and speaking to the listening audience and the watching audience out there. We come to this time in our country when every one of us, all of us, we have an obligation. It doesn't matter who in the mansion, regardless. We have to leave this discussion with one question: what is it that I can do to help foster or improve the direction of the country? How can I do my part in a positive way? And the answer may vary. There'll be hundreds and thousands of answers. And some of it may be negative. People may think that there's nothing that will rescue. People don't need to get involved. I'm very convinced that the further we go as a nation, the more we'll be pressed to come together because the nature of the challenges will demand that. The average person on the street, the young generation today, information technology is omnipotent all over the place. People watching what's happening next door, they see how Ghana moving forward, Ivory Coast, they see. So they will start demanding that they too benefit. I think the share inertia, that kind of energy will force the leaders to start thinking. I think the leadership, regardless of the position, whether the ruling party, opposition, we should start thinking about how we can harness the value that each represents. It's not just about jobs and money and power. Well, people will always look in that present. But the myopic thinking misses a larger point. If you can force people together by your shared commitment and let them engage, don't make decisions about NIMBA without bringing people from NIMBA. Don't make decisions about Birmingham or Cape Town without bringing, and not just bring people on your side, on your party, in your party. Bring other people who will disagree with you. Many things they will not agree, but force them to have that conversation. I think as time changes, as time goes on, you find a lot of good in all of us from different political space and different spheres. So I continue to preach that. Sometimes people think it's too lofty and you're not right fit for the environment. Well, maybe one day we change, but I think we got to continue to be positive. And I thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you so much, Mr. Passawe, for being here. We look forward to more engagements like this from you and the ANC membership. Has someone asked here, say, when is Mr. Cummings coming? So our invitation is still out there for Mr. Cummings. Please advise him to come. We want to talk with him.
I will pass that on. I will definitely pass that on, Dennis.
And so, folks in cyberspace, we have come to the end of our broadcast. But as you know, I always have something juicy for you. And yeah, it is. They call themselves the opposition. And not only that, they said they are the real deal. They are the alternatives, they said. And so I have been searching and looking among them to see the alternative plans. I'm yet to see one. I'm looking for the alternative team. I'm yet to see them. When I ask them, show me your team on economics, they say they don't have one. Show me your team on agriculture. They don't have one. I mean, is this the alternative I should settle for? I, Anthony C. will not settle for it. 2003 is just tomorrow. They don't even have team on economics, on education that are planning every day and discussing. They don't even have a team to hold the government accountable on the budget. They're not even showing on an alternative budget. Something that will draw a sharp contrast between the opposition and the government. So this opposition, I'm indicting the opposition, is not up to the task. Their framework is like a secret. We don't know where it is. I've been searching, but maybe I'll find it on the ANC website. Does the CPP have a website? I will check. Maybe it will be there. And so, folks, I have bad news for you. The opposition we have is not yet ready, and I, Anthony C, approve this message. On that note, folks, in cyberspace, there's a song that says we are all Liberians. Yes, we are. Listen to that song 1 minute. The next time Mr. Passawe comes here, I'm sure the alternatives will be in his hand. And Mr. Passawe, that is your assignment. Come with the alternatives next time. I want to see them, my brother, because it's good for Liberia, and that is what I want. Bye-bye, folks.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.